Hi. In the last class, we discussed about boundary conditions for electric field. So, in this lecture, we are going to see about boundary conditions for magnetic field. So, you can connect it quite easily if you have seen the last lecture. As much as I am understanding, all of you might not have seen the last lecture. It's 8:30, right, in the morning. So, even after this also, even if you are seeing it after this also, please see, because this is something that you can answer quite easily when it comes to examination, and quite very interesting as well as good to understand also. So please see the last video. Okay, attending the review questions does not mean that you have already seen that. I think you did. All of you have not seen the last lecture, so please see whoever have not seen. Let us get into boundary conditions for magnetic field. So what is boundary condition? That we have already discussed in the last class. When you have two mediums, then what is the condition that the field will satisfy at the interface separating the two media? That is what is meant by the boundary conditions, right? When you have only one medium, then it is quite clear what will be the electric or magnetic field. Then what will be the magnetic field be at one place? There is no doubt. But when you have two media, then definitely the magnetic field at one place will affect the magnetic field at the another material, right? And this materials are the difference between the material and property is the permeability when we come to magnetic field, right? Or the boundary conditions and magnetic field. In electric field, it was the permittivity, right? One having epsilon 1 and the one having epsilon 2. Here we will the change is with what permeability only, right? And the analysis is quite similar to the boundary conditions for electric field. So we will get into how can we achieve this, or how can we do this. Okay, it is similar to the analysis of the boundary condition for electric field. What we did there, where we use Maxwell's equation. What was the Maxwell's equation that we used when it came to electric field density? We used two Maxwell's equation. One is integral over the line, or the integral over the loop, E dot dl equal to 0, right? That was one equation, integral over the loop, E dot dl is 0. And the second one that we used is what? The Gauss's law in integral form. What is that? Integral over the closed surface, which we call the Gaussian surface, d dot ds equal to the charge enclosed, right? That we used to find out the boundary condition for electric field in the last lecture. Now, in this lecture, we are going to, the procedure is quite the same. We are going to use a similar method, and here the Maxwell's equation we are going to use is similar to Gauss's law, similar to whatever Gauss's law is there in magnetism. The similar thing we are using there, but here what is Gauss's law in magnetism? The closed integral over the surface. If we have a closed integral over surface like this, then if B is the magnetic flux density like this, then B dot ds is equal to 0, right? This we have seen in the last module. B dot ds will be equal to, over a closed surface, B dot ds will be equal to 0. So that is Gauss's law in magnetism. Now the second equation you are very much familiar with. What is that? S dot dl equal to the current enclosed. S dot dl over what? Over a loop, your S dot dl is equal to the current enclosed, right? That is what we call as Ampere circuital law. We have used it in the last module, which was taken before lockdown, that to find out the magnetic field density for different current for different current elements. Like this is the current, then if this one is the ambient circuital loop, then we know how to find out the H, right? So that these are the two equations, or Maxwell's equations, that we are going to use for what? For finding out the boundary conditions in magnetic field. Okay, so we will use just the similar method as we used in finding out the boundary condition for electric field. Now, just similar to the electric field, here also we have to decompose the field. So what is the field we have here? Magnetic field we represent in terms of what? Magnetic flux density as well as magnetic field intensity, right? Magnetic flux density B as well as, sorry, this is not electric, this is magnetic. So and electric field in magnetic field intensity, right? This is not electric, but it is magnetic. So we usually decompose in terms of magnetic flux and magnetic flux density, field intensity. So magnetic flux density is B. So it is just similar, like we have a vector B, we can decompose that vector into two parts. One is the tangential component of B, another one is the normal component of B. Tangential component, tangential means what? That component which is tangential to the boundary, and the normal component is normal to the boundary. This way you can decompose vector B or the magnetic flux density into two vectors. So what is the relationship between B and H, or the magnetic flux density and magnetic field intensity? They are related with what? B equal to mu H or mu times H, where mu we call as the permeability of the material, which is going to change in two sides of the boundary. So when we have B like this, then similarly what we can do, we can also decompose the magnetic field intensity H as what? The tangential component as well as the normal component. It is just similar. In terms of here, if you have vector B, there it will become H. That is the only difference. That way we can decompose also. These are the two concepts that we will be using to derive boundary condition. One, using the boundary condition, using the two Maxwell's equation, which is Gauss's law in magnetism and Ampere's circuital law. Along with that, we will decompose the vector B and H, which specify the magnetic field, right? B and H, and into our tangential and normal components. So this way we can analysis. So magnetic boundary condition, similar here we have two medium. This is the first medium and this is my second medium or the second material. First material's permeability is mu1, right? Magnetic permeability is mu1. Second material's permeability is mu2. So that is what we got here, and this here is your surface boundary between the two elements, two materials, right? And the magnetic flux density B1 in the first material is like this. It has been decomposed into tangential and normal component with respect to what? With respect to our boundary. So this is the boundary that we have. So on this boundary, this is B1 T is tangential and B1 also is normal. So that way we have. Similarly, in the second medium, we have B2, which is the magnetic flux density, which is decomposed into B2T and B2N. Right? Again, tangential to the boundary. This is normal to the boundary. So that is our magnetic field condition. So first, let us apply the Gauss's law in magnetism. In electric field density, electric field boundary condition, we did the reverse, but let us do it this way here. Okay, so for that, Gauss's law in magnetism means what? Over the closed surface, B dot ds equal to 0. So that closed surface is my cylinder. Okay, that closed surface is my cylinder. So we discussed it in last time also. For the curved surface, since your tangential components are there and this delta S will change over the surface of this curved surface, then your on your curved surface the B dot ds value will be anyhow equal to 0. This we discussed very nicely in the electric field condition. Same thing applies here. So effectively, if you write for this cylindrical sphere, you will have a delta S component here, and you will have a delta S component in the opposite direction. So these are the two delta S components which will come in your B dot ds equation, right? So what is the this is delta S, and dot product means what? This is delta S. In this direction of delta S, what is the flux density? This delta S is in the first medium, and in its direction we have what? The normal component of magnetic flux density. So the first delta S we will get B1N into delta S, because the direction of delta S is normal outward, and the direction of normal component of what? Magnetic flux density in the first medium, that also is in the same direction as that of delta S. So we have a positive B1 and delta S. When you come to the bottom surface, your delta S direction is normal outward here also, but your magnetic flux density B2N here, that is in which direction? That is will be in the opposite direction. That is why we have written here minus B2N into delta S, which is equal to what? 0. The right hand side here is B dot D is equal to 0. So this will be equal to 0. That is our Gauss's law in magnetism result, right? So that means what? This delta B1 and delta S equal to B2 and delta S, or delta S will become cancelled, and you have what you will have? You will have B1N equal to B2N, right? That is our first conclusion. What is our conclusion? Our conclusion is that the normal component of magnetic flux density, is continuous across the surface, right? Or the continuous across the boundary. On the boundary, your magnetic flux density is normal component, that is continuous, so there is no change happening, right? So B1N equal to B2N is your first condition. Now what is B? B equal to mu H. So B1N we can write as what? Mu1 into H1N. B2N we can write as mu2 into H2N, right? So here one thing is quite clear. Just as in electric field density, the magnetic field intensity H1N and H2N are not equal at the boundary, right? So we can say that H is what? The normal component of H. The normal component of H is discontinuous at the boundary. So what we understand here is that normal component of magnetic flux density, that is continuous, and magnetic field intensity's normal component is discontinuous at the boundary. That is our conclusion from applying what? Gauss's law in magnetism. Now let's into the second application. What is our second application? Again we have two mediums, medium 1 and medium 2, which are having two permeabilities, and here we are going to consider what? Here we are going to consider the magnetic field intensity H1 in the first material and magnetic field intensity H2 in the second material. So it is resolved into tangential and normal components on two mediums. And what is our Ampere's circular law? Ampere's circular law states that integral over the loop, right? Integral over the loop S dot dl equal to what? The total current enclosed along the loop ABCDA, right? And here one more consideration is there, that on the surface of this boundary we say that it can have, right? It can happen that we can say that there is some current flowing, and the surface current density is given by K. Surface current density is given by K, and that current is considered to be flowing normal to this boundary, or in the space whatever we are seeing at the boundary, whatever that loop, ambient loop is considered, right? The ambient loop is what? ABCDA, right? For that the current is flowing normal. Understood? So now let us easily write what? Easily write that S dot dl equal to the current enclosed. How can we write that? So for that, first let us consider the AB part. For AB part, the width is delta W, right? What is the component of the magnetic field intensity which is in the same direction as AB? That is the H1T component, right? So we wrote H1T into delta W. Now when we come from B to delta S by 2, means B to the boundary, when we come, then it is the same medium. After boundary, then medium has changed, right? So when medium changes, then your magnetic field intensity also will change. So this B to the boundary, we can write the width is delta S by 2, and there what is the component which is in the same direction as B to boundary? That is the normal component of what? Magnetic field intensity H1N. But when you are going from B to boundary, the direction of length is in this direction, but your H1N direction is what? H1N direction is just what? Opposite to that direction. That is why you have a minus H1N into delta S by 2 here. Clear? Now afterwards again you are coming from what? From the boundary to the point C. There also length is in this direction, and since your medium has just changed, what is the normal component? What is the component which is in the same direction? That is H2N, or the normal component of magnetic field density in the second material. So here also that is upward. So here the direction will be reversed. Because of that, you have
minus S2n into delta S by 2 here, right? Now afterwards, now let us go from where C to D. Now let us take S dot dl from C to D. C to D again width is delta W, and in the same direction what you have, you got H2T, not in the same direction but just in parallel direction opposite to it. So H2T means what? The tangential component of magnetic field intensity in the second medium. So minus H2T into delta W is your portion forward C to D. When you go to D to the boundary and boundary to A, you will have what? This H2n into delta S by 2 and H1 into delta S by 2, right? No need to give an explanation for that, right? H2n into delta S by 2 means what? Here S2n is in this direction and delta S by 2 also is in the same direction. That is why you got it what? Positive. And similarly, when you go up from this boundary to A, again your H1n and delta S by 2 are in the same direction. So you got positive here, which is equal to what? Which is equal to the total current enclosed. What is the current enclosed? Once you know that the current density, surface current density is K, then whatever be the width that is flowing, what is the width? That is W, delta W. So K into delta W will give you the total current enclosed. Clear? So that way we completed our ambient loop integration. Integral over the loop S dot dl equal to the current enclosed. So there what we will get the what we will be able to find out the you can very easily point out that this negative parts minus h1 and 2 minus h2 and delta s by 2 and this positive part h2 and h1 and delta s by 2, this will get cancelled. Only then the remaining part will be what? H1t into delta w minus h2t into delta w equal to k into delta w, right? H1t into delta W minus H2t into delta W equal to K into delta W. Again your delta W will get cancelled on both sides. So we got the second boundary condition from here. What is our secondary boundary condition? H1t minus H2t equal to what? K, right? H1t delta W, and if it get cancelled, then what? H1t into delta W, H1t minus H2t equal to what? K, or the surface current density, right? So this is our second boundary condition. But now what happened? The tangential component of H, that also is what? Discontinuous. We already got that our normal component of H is discontinuous. But if at all there is a current flowing, then what will happen? Then our tangential component of the H means magnetic field intensity, that also will become discontinuous. When we say that is discontinuous, then what we got? We can also write it as what? B1t by mu1 means H equal to what? B equal to mu H, or H equal to what? B by mu, right? So H1t we can replace as B1t by mu1, and H2t we can replace as what? B2t by mu2 in terms of the magnetic flux density, that will be equal to K. So that is the boundary condition when we are thinking about what? There is a surface current which is flowing on the boundary. So that is our two boundary. Okay. Now let us say, suppose that if our boundary is free of current, means what? If we have conductor, then we have free electrons there and there can be current. But if we are saying that our materials are not conductors, then definitely there is no current. Under such circumstance, we can say that the surface current density K is equal to 0, right? Surface current density will be equal to 0. What it means? It means that H1t minus H2t equal to K. That was our equation last time. So that will become equal to 0, or H1t will be equal to H2t. Means what? Our tangential component of magnetic field intensity is continuous at the boundary, right? Or we can also write what? B1t by mu1 equal to B2t by mu2, right? Right, when we change the equation like this. So our point here is that the tangential component of the magnetic field intensity is continuous while B is discontinuous at the boundary. We got the reverse for what? The normal component of H as well as B, right? So now let us conclude this magnetic boundary conditions. Okay. So first part is what, using our Gauss's law in magnetism, we found out that B1n, normal component of magnetic flux density, equal to normal component of what, magnetic flux density in the two media. Means what, the magnetic flux density's normal component is continuous. It is continuous on the boundary. Whenever we say magnetic flux density's normal component is continuous, then that itself will show what, that itself will show that the magnetic field intensity, means magnetic flux density was continuous, then magnetic field intensity will be discontinuous on the boundary for normal component, right? Then we went into using what, Ampere's circular law. There we found out that the tangential component, whenever there is a surface current, then H1t minus H2t will be equal to K, means that is again just like your normal component is discontinuous. Similarly, your tangential component of the field intensity also will be discontinuous when you have a current, surface current flowing. That means again B1t we can also write in terms of what, magnetic field, magnetic flux density also. Now when you don't have any surface current, or you are not thinking about conductors as the medium, then what happened, then your tangential component's magnetic field intensity will be equal, or that the magnetic field intensity will be continuous for tangential component in the boundary, and that when it is there, then definitely we know that magnetic flux density's tangential component is discontinuous. Okay, so it is quite easy. Once you get that, one field is represented in terms of what, B and S, magnetic flux density and magnetic field intensity. Once we know that one of them are continuous at boundary, then the other one is not continuous. Understood? And specifically when your K equals also 0, and when right, and vice versa. So that is our summary about magnetic boundary conditions. So we discussed about electric boundary boundary condition for electric field as well as for magnetic field. Okay, now we are getting into some of the last portions in this module. That means the time varying electric and magnetic field. We are going to modify our Maxwell's equation. Till now our equations were for static fields, right? So now we are going to get into the time varying field, right? What I mean is that in your first module, not first module, in your second module, you learned about electrostatics, means that is about stationary charges, right? Like you have a system of charges, here 1 plus 1 coulomb, then plus 3 coulomb, plus 1 coulomb, and minus 3 coulomb. If they are all stationary in space, then what will be the electric field, what will be the force between them? These all things we discussed in electrostatics. So a charge at rest, that can produce a field, right? That can produce a field or an effect on the nearby space, that we call that we call electric field, and that that is what we study in what, electrostatics, right? Now when we came to magnetostatics, for magnetostatics either we need steady current. Steady current means what? Again the flow of charges. But that flow of charges that is quite uniform velocity, you can say. Means charges are flowing at the same velocity, right? That is what we mean by steady current, right? So that is magnetostatic. Again there the magnitude of H, magnetic magnitude of H around it. Here if it's a current carrying conductor, you have magnetic field around it, and its magnitude is not changing with respect to time. That is what we mean by magnetostatic. A magnetostatic field can also be produced by what? A permanent magnet also, right? That also we have seen. So this was our concept till now. Okay, how whenever we learned electric field in electrostatics, we always represented electric field in terms of what? Spatial coordinate, right? X, Y, Z, or in cylindrical terms like rho, phi, and Z, or in again in spherical coordinates we represented it like what? R, theta, phi. Everything was with space only, because it is varying only with respect to space, not with respect to time, right? That is why our electric field was represented by the U of x, y, z, right? Or that because that vector was varying with respect to space and not with respect to time, right? Similarly, magnetic field we can represent in terms of what? H or B, magnetic field density or magnetic field density. Again, that also is varying with respect to the spatial coordinates x, y, z. So this was our idea till now, right? Now come into time varying time varying field, it is different. Means we can say our electric field is produced by charges at rest. Now our magnetic field is produced by what? There the charges started moving. First our charge was at rest. Then once we come into magnetostatics, our charge started moving, but it is moving with a uniform velocity. That is what we mean by steady current flow, right? It is moving with a uniform velocity. When we are saying about the when we are saying about the time varying field, what we mean is that our electric field as well as magnetic field, when it is varying with respect to time also, it is varying with respect to space already, right? When the one or both are varying with respect to time also, then we say that what it is a time varying field. Under that conditions, your charge will be accelerated. Under such condition, your charge will be accelerated. Understood? So that is about time varying field. There, so we have to modify our Maxwell's equation in order to be true even under the conditions of what? Time varying field also. That is our aim. That is what we are going to get into. Okay. So time varying field means like this, means magnetostatics, your charge is what? With respect to time, your current is what? A constant like this, DC, right? Whenever with respect to my time, my current or waveform is varying like this. It can be a pulse, it can be a sinusoidal wave, or it can be triangular wave, whatever it is, that produces my time varying field, right? That produces my time varying electric field as well as my time varying magnetic field. That is what we are going to get into. Okay. In that in that we are when we get into the time varying field, the first concept that we are going to get into is the famous Faraday's law. So really why we got into Faraday's law, right? This experiment is discussed with you in magnetostatic, means this is the Easter's experiment. What he did when in his classroom or in his laboratory, when he was studying about magnetism, that time he switched on a means he was studying about this he was conducting an experiment, and he had a battery or a cell like this, and he's having a conductor also, and once he closed the switch, then what happened? Your current started flowing, and that current was flowing, and nearby he had a compass also, and that compass started fluctuating, right? This experiment is told to you long before. So what it means? It means that this current is producing magnetism. That is why your magnetic needle or this compass is what? Deflecting. So that concept is what struck Easted, and that went into other laws in magnetostatics, right? So here your charge is the charge, or charge means what? Your charge is producing what? Magnetism, right? That is interesting. So our question here is that what about electric field from magnetism? Means anyhow your charge is producing magnetism. Now what about the reverse? Reverse means what? Whether magnetism can produce electricity or not. Okay, that concept led to Faraday's law, or what? Induced EMF, right? So that is what we will be discussing in the next lecture about Faraday's law. Using Faraday's law, we will start modifying what? We will start modifying the Maxwell's equation. So coming portions are very important, and that will what I can say, means Maxwell's equations is the most important part of electromagnetics, and we are going to get into what the complete Maxwell's equation when it comes to time varying field also. So that will be covered in the next 1 or 2 lectures, where we will first see Faraday's law, then we have to see about the force on a conductor in magnetic field as well, right? Force on a current carrying conductor in magnetic field as well. Using that, we will conclude the time varying magnetic and electric field, or we will get into time varying electric and magnetic field. We will define it, and we will get into the last form of what? Maxwell's equation, and there we will also see displacement current as well. So that is the portions that are coming. So coming lectures, please see it thoroughly, and if you have any doubts, please let me know, because that is the most important part in electromagnetics subject. Okay, so thank you. Attend the review questions as well.